"There's a camera in your office," the little boy whispered. The words were soft, nearly lost in the hum of the room, but they hit Marcus Delaney like a gunshot. The boy, no older than 7, stood in his rumpled school uniform just a few feet from Marcus's desk, his tiny hands clenched at his sides, his face pale and serious. His voice had trembled as he spoke, but he hadn't blinked. Marcus sat frozen in his leather chair, heart pounding inside his chest like a trapped animal. He looked past the boy toward the glass doors of his office, where his fiancée, Clara Marin, stood laughing with his assistant. She had no idea what the child had just said. Or maybe she did. "There's a camera in your office." Marcus swallowed hard. A chill raced down his spine. He stared at the boy again, as if the child might vanish into smoke. "Where?" he asked in a whisper. The boy pointed to the side wall, above the bookshelf, where a brass clock ticked quietly. Behind that, the boy said, "She put it there." Marcus's mind reeled. "She, Clara." And then the door clicked. Clara stepped into the office, smiling sweetly. "What's going on in here?" Marcus looked at her, and everything he thought he knew about the woman he loved began to come apart. 3 weeks earlier, the sky over New York City was gray and soft with early snow. Marcus Delaney's black Bentley pulled into the underground garage of the Orion Towers, a shimmering skyscraper he partly owned. As the richest man under 40 on the East Coast, Marcus had long stopped counting the zeros in his bank account. But that morning, what made his hands sweat wasn't a billion-dollar deal. It was a velvet ring box sitting in his coat pocket. He was going to propose. Clara Marin was the kind of woman who made rooms fall silent. A journalist turned media darling, she'd entered Marcus's world like a breath of wild air. Beautiful, mysterious, clever. They'd met 6 months earlier at a charity gala where she'd grilled him about his investments in clean water. 2 weeks later, she was having breakfast in his penthouse, barefoot and quoting Hemingway. It had felt like magic. Marcus walked through the lobby of the tower, nodding to staff, barely hearing their greetings. He pressed the elevator button, the box in his pocket feeling heavier by the second. "Morning, Mr. Delaney," came a cheerful voice. He turned and smiled. "Hey, Tim." Timothy was the janitor's kid. 8 years old, maybe. He liked to hang around the building after school and often wandered the hallways with a comic book tucked under one arm. Marcus had taken a liking to him, reminded him of himself at that age, before the money, before the loneliness that came with it. "You look nervous," Tim said suddenly, peering up at him. Marcus chuckled. "Do I? Yeah, you look like when my uncle was going to propose to his girlfriend. But then she said no, and he cried in the bathroom." Marcus laughed louder this time. "Well, let's hope I have better luck." When he reached the 59th floor, his private office suite, Clara was already waiting there, leaning against the window, city lights glittering behind her. She turned when he entered, her smile slow and full of secrets. "You're late," she said. He shrugged off his coat. "Was buying time." "I'm nervous." Her eyes sparkled. "What?" Marcus stepped closer, heart thudding, hands slipping into his coat. But just as he pulled out the velvet box and dropped to one knee, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. Marcus flinched, Clara jumped. They both turned. Tim stood by the doorway, holding a toppled coat rack. Sorry," he stammered. Clara forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's okay," Marcus said, chuckling. "He's my little watchdog." Clara's gaze lingered on Tim a second longer than it needed to. Marcus didn't notice. He had a ring to offer. The engagement was a storm. Every tabloid wanted a piece of them. Clara, the charming, beautiful reporter who'd once exposed corrupt senators, was now engaged to one of the richest men in America. And Marcus, private, brooding, famously uncatchable, had finally been caught. But not everyone was thrilled. Tim, for one, had grown quieter each time he saw Clara. Once, after she'd ruffled his hair and walked off, the boy turned to Marcus and said, "She's like a cat that pretends to purr, but bites when you sleep." Marcus had laughed, but a part of him had paused. Stranger things followed. Marcus began noticing tiny changes. Files in his office slightly moved. A drawer left open. An important phone call that Clara somehow knew about before he told her. He shrugged it off at first. Maybe he was paranoid. Then came the night of the gala. It was hosted in Marcus's own skyscraper. The top floor ballroom sparkled with champagne and diamonds. Clara looked like a dream in silver silk. But Marcus's mood was off. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was always watching him. Later that night, Tim cornered him near the kitchen hallway. "There's a red light blinking behind your bookshelf," the boy said, eyes wide. "What do you mean?" "In your office. I saw it when I was looking for the bathroom." Marcus frowned. "What kind of red light?" "A tiny one, like a camera." Marcus didn't sleep that night. In the morning, he entered his office before anyone else. He climbed onto a chair, reached behind the brass clock, and froze. There it was, a tiny pinhole camera blinking red. It had been watching him, listening. He pried it off with shaking hands. A sticker on the back read, "TSI ServCam 540. Security grade. Expensive. Not something a curious child would plant. Someone had meant for it to be there. And only 2 people ever had access to his private office. His assistant and Clara. He didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, he asked a tech friend to trace the frequency the camera used. 2 days later, the answer came back. The footage had been uploading live to a private server registered in Berlin, and the account had been accessed 5 times over the past month. The login ID? A pseudonym that traced back to a burner laptop. One recently found in Clara's luggage when Marcus asked his driver to accidentally take it to the wrong hotel room. Now, today, Tim had whispered the final nail. "There's a camera in your office," the boy said. She put it there. Marcus's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. He looked at Clara, standing there with her perfect smile, her long red nails, her perfume curling in the air like invisible smoke. He had to stay calm. "Hey," she said, walking in. "Everything okay?" Marcus smiled. "Yeah, everything's fine." He stood and walked over, wrapping his arms around her. He kissed her temple. "Actually," he said softly, "I was thinking about taking a trip with you." Clara tilted her head. "Really? Where?" He smiled wider. "Somewhere quiet. No cameras." Clara blinked once, but just for a second. Then she nodded. "Sounds perfect." Marcus's heart thundered in his chest. Because he knew, and now she might know he knew. But what she didn't know was that she was walking into a trap. A trap that would reveal everything. That very night, Marcus barely spoke on the drive. Clara sat beside him in the Bentley, her legs crossed, one hand resting lightly on his thigh. She wore a black cashmere coat and a soft red scarf, her lipstick a matching crimson. From the outside, they looked like the perfect couple, successful, in love, untouchable. But inside the car, silence filled the space like smoke. Marcus's driver, Harlan, said nothing as he took the road upstate. The city faded behind them, replaced by stretches of forest and dark sky. Marcus had told Clara they were going to a secluded winter lodge. A romantic getaway. No press. No staff. Just the 2 of them. "Are you okay?" Clara asked as the trees grew thicker outside the window. He nodded. "Just tired." She leaned over and kissed his cheek. "I'm glad we're doing this. We've both been so busy lately." He smiled faintly, but didn't respond. Inside his coat pocket was a flash drive. It held 3 weeks' worth of footage recovered from the hidden office camera. Hours of conversations, including one with a foreign businessman whom Marcus knew for a fact Clara had never met. But she somehow knew details about the deal before Marcus told her. She knew everything. The footage also showed her moving around the office late at night, alone, while he was supposed to be asleep. She hadn't just been spying. She'd been working for someone. The lodge came into view just before midnight. A stone and wood structure nestled by a frozen lake. The lights were on, the fireplace lit. Everything had been arranged. What Clara didn't know was that there were already 2 people inside waiting. People Marcus trusted with his life. One of them was a former CIA tech specialist. The other had once protected a head of state. Marcus opened the door for Clara, offering his hand like a perfect gentleman. She stepped out, heels crunching on snow. She smiled and breathed in. "It's beautiful," she said. Marcus watched her closely. There was no sign of fear, no sign that she suspected. But he saw her eyes flick briefly toward the upstairs windows. Calculating. Always calculating. They walked inside together. Clara looked around with a contented sigh, then turned to kiss him fully on the lips. "I love you," she whispered. Marcus kissed her back. "I know." Upstairs, behind a one-way mirror, the two men watched everything. One of them clicked a small button on a laptop. Hidden microphones activated across the lodge. Marcus and Clara sat by the fire, wine glasses in hand. The wood crackled. Outside, snow began to fall. It was the kind of night people wrote songs about. Marcus had rehearsed this moment in his mind a dozen times. But now that it was here, his mouth felt dry. He looked at her. "You ever keep secret from me?" Clara's eyebrows rose slightly. "What kind of secrets?" "I don't know. Anything." He smiled. "Something you think I wouldn't understand." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Everyone keeps secrets, Marcus." He stared into the flames. "Even you. Especially me," she whispered. For a second, silence again. Marcus slowly reached for his pocket and pulled out the velvet ring box, not the flash drive. He opened it. "I meant to give this to you again tonight. A second proposal. Just us." She blinked, surprised. Then she laughed softly. "You're really something." She slipped the ring on her finger, kissed him, and stood. "I'm going to grab a blanket," she said. "Be right back." She walked upstairs. But she didn't go into the linen closet. She went into the master bedroom, closed the door, and pulled out a sleek black laptop from her purse. Upstairs, the two men watched her on the hidden camera. "She's not wasting time," the ex-CIA man muttered. "Nope," the other said. "She's logging in. Intercept the signal." Clara typed quickly, eyes focused. Her laptop connected to a private Wi-Fi signal only she had access to. A few seconds later, her screen showed live thumbnails from dozens of hidden feeds, places Marcus had no idea were being watched. His office, his boardroom, even the private elevator. She wasn't working alone. Downstairs, Marcus sat completely still. A soft click sounded in his earpiece. "She's in," came the whisper. "We got access." Marcus stood, slowly, deliberately, and climbed the stairs. Clara heard him coming and quickly closed the laptop. Too late. The door opened. He didn't speak. He just stared at her. Clara smiled, but her face had changed. No longer soft and playful. Now her expression was still. Cold. Cautious. Marcus reached into his coat and pulled out the flash drive. He set on the table. "What's that?" she asked, voice light. "You tell me." Clara's eyes flicked from the drive to the bag beside her, then back to his face. He waited. She didn't blink. Then she stood up and took a slow breath. "You're smarter than I thought," she said. He nodded. "And you're better at pretending than I ever imagined." For a moment, it felt like time had stopped. Then Clara ran. She lunged toward her purse, pulled out a small device, metallic, cylindrical. Marcus shouted, "Now!" But it was too late. She slammed the device into the floor. It exploded with a burst of blinding light and smoke. Marcus fell back, coughing. The entire room spun. Upstairs, the men rushed to the stairs, but a second flash went off, cutting them off with a blinding pulse. Clara dove through the smoke, past Marcus, and down the back hallway. By the time he recovered and reached the door, she was gone. A snowmobile, his, revved to life outside, speeding off into the dark woods. Marcus stood on the porch, staring into the night, breath steaming in the cold air. "She escaped," one of the men said behind him. But Marcus shook his head slowly. "No, she thinks she did." He opened his hand. There was a second flash drive, one he'd slipped in her bag before she ran. "She's going to lead us straight to the others." And he was right, because inside the tiny device was something Clara had overlooked. A GPS tracker. And the next morning, Marcus would learn exactly where she was going. But he wasn't the only one watching her now. Someone else had joined the game, and they wanted Marcus dead. The snowmobile's engine faded into the distance, swallowed by the wind and the trees. Marcus stood on the porch of the lodge, breath sharp in his lungs, heart pounding. The moon glowed faintly through heavy clouds, as if watching everything unfold from above. Inside his palm, the GPS tracker pulsed with a soft red light. She had no idea. "She's heading west," the ex-CIA agent, Jonah Pierce, said, stepping beside Marcus. He held a tablet connected to the tracker. "Pine Lake Forest Road. Remote. No surveillance out there. She's making contact. With who? Marcus asked. Jonah shrugged. That's the real question. The second man, a quiet security expert named Vic Ramirez, stepped out onto the porch. Already sent the footage to Homeland. That camera network she tapped into? Not just yours, Marcus. She had feeds from 4 other billionaires' private offices. One of them runs a weapons contractor. This is international. Marcus's jaw clenched. He wanted answers. Now, he had something else. A war. Vic continued. We've got less than an hour before she reaches the next drop point. You want to follow? We need to move. Marcus didn't hesitate. Let's go. 2 black SUVs tore through the snow-covered back roads, tires slicing white powder. Jonah drove the lead car. Marcus sat in the passenger seat, staring at the GPS signal on the dash. She slowed down, Jonah said. Half a mile ahead. Looks like she stopped. Marcus leaned forward. What's there? Jonah pressed a button. A drone camera, launched from the second SUV, showed a cabin in the woods. No lights, no sign of movement, but a second snowmobile stood outside. Someone had been waiting. Inside the cabin, Clara crouched near wood stove, breathing heavily. Her phone was dead. She hadn't expected Marcus to figure it out so quickly, or to act so fast. Still, she had made contact. The laptop had pinged the Berlin server. They'd know she was compromised. She unzipped her boot and pulled out a folded slip of paper. Coordinates. A new extraction point. She had 40 minutes to make it there. She didn't notice the tiny red light blinking from inside her purse. Outside, the drone circled silently. Then a sudden flash. Gunfire. The drone feed cut to static. EMP. Vic's voice crackled over the radio. They're jamming the feed. Confirmed, Jonah replied. Let's move. They know we're watching. Marcus's stomach dropped. She's not alone in there. The SUVs pulled up 50 yards from the cabin. Jonah and Vic flanked Marcus, each armed. They moved silently through the trees. Snow crunched under their boots. When they reached the clearing, Vic raised a hand. 2 guards. Russian accents. Body armor. Marcus's voice was low. She's running to them. Jonah shook his head. No, she's running from them. Inside the cabin, Clara backed away as one of the men slammed the stove door shut. You led them here, he growled. The signal was traced. Clara shook her head. They knew before that. We need to move. Now. The man raised a pistol. Clara's eyes narrowed. I didn't fail. I redirected them. He doesn't know everything. From the trees, Marcus watched the man aim the gun at her chest. Then Clara moved like lightning. A spinning kick knocked the pistol from his hand. She ducked and grabbed a poker from the fireplace, jabbing it into his side. The other man lunged. She dodged him and ran for the back door. Now, Jonah barked. Flashbangs flew through the windows. The cabin exploded in light and sound. Marcus and the team stormed in as chaos erupted. Clara hit the snow behind the cabin, running hard. She didn't see Marcus until he tackled her to the ground. They rolled down a short hill, landing in a tangle of arms and breathless fury. Get off me, Clara hissed. Not until you tell me who you're working for. I was protecting you. By spying on me? They stared at each other, breathing hard. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. A shadow of real emotion. Then gunfire rang out behind them. Jonah's voice crackled in the comms. Second team inbound, military style. Not ours. Vic shouted, we got 6 incoming, fast. Marcus pulled Clara up. We're getting out of here. Together. You're insane, she said, but she didn't fight him. They ran. Snow whipped their faces as they cut through the woods, dodging bullets, weaving between trees. Marcus didn't know what Clara's endgame was anymore. All he knew was someone wanted her dead. And now, someone wanted him dead, too. They reached an old hunting shack. Marcus kicked open the door. Inside was a radio. He tried the emergency channel. Nothing. Clara slumped to the ground, hands bleeding, her scarf missing. You shouldn't have come after me, she said. You shouldn't have lied to me. I didn't lie. Not all of it. He crouched beside her. Then tell me the truth. Right now. Clara looked at him. I was hired to get into your world. Find out what you knew. But when I got close, I didn't expect you. I tried to walk away. They said they'd kill me. Marcus stared at her. Ooh, she opened her mouth. But a bullet tore through the shack's window. Marcus shoved her down just as the glass exploded. Clara screamed. Outside, footsteps crunched in the snow. They were surrounded, and the men coming weren't here to arrest anyone. They were here to make sure Marcus and Clara never spoke again. Marcus reached for his sidearm, eyes locked on the door. Then, boom, the entire front wall of the shack was blown open. A masked man stepped through the smoke, and he wasn't one of theirs. He pointed his weapon at Marcus. "Mr. Delaney," he said with a thick accent, "you've seen too much." Clara stood behind Marcus, eyes wide. "You?" she whispered. The man turned to her, and his eyes narrowed. "You were supposed to keep him close, not lead him here." And in that instant, Marcus realized Clara wasn't the spy. She was the bait. And now, both of them were expendable. The masked man stepped into the ruined shack, his boots cracking glass underfoot. Behind him, two more figures emerged from the smoke, faces obscured, rifles raised, silent and precise. Trained, professional. Marcus stood slowly, his hand instinctively shielding Clara behind him. Snow drifted through the blown-out wall, wind howling through broken planks like a ghost. "I said," the man repeated, "you've seen too much." His accent was hard to place, Eastern European, maybe Balkan, cold and clipped. Marcus's voice was even. "Then maybe you shouldn't have left so much to see." The man chuckled without humor. "Brave, but pointless." His eyes shifted toward Clara. "I should have known you'd crack. You always fall for your targets." Marcus turned to her, slowly. "This isn't the first time." Clara didn't answer. Her hands trembled, but her eyes, they were locked on the man's. "You told me I'd be safe," she said. "You were until you failed." The man raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Clara moved. She stepped in front of Marcus, hands raised. "Wait," she said quickly. "I can still fix this." The man hesitated. "I know things he doesn't," Clara continued. "Things your bosses will want. Let me extract with you. He's just a civilian. Leave him." The silence that followed was sharp as ice. Marcus stared at her, disbelief and fury rising in his chest. "You're bargaining with them? After everything?" Clara didn't look at him. She just kept her eyes on the gun. The masked man gave a small nod. "Fine." He motioned for his team to lower their rifles. Then he smiled, but the smile never reached his eyes. And that's when Marcus saw the truth. They weren't going to let anyone leave alive. Without thinking, he grabbed Clara's arm and yanked her sideways, just as the man fired. The bullet missed by inches and hit the wooden beam behind them with a crack. Then all hell broke loose. Gunfire tore through the shack. Marcus shoved Clara through the back window. They fell into the snow behind the shack, rolling, breathless, adrenaline roaring. The night was ripped open with shouts, bursts of muzzle flash lighting up the trees. Vic's voice screamed in Marcus's earpiece. "Evac inbound. 90 seconds out." Marcus pulled Clara up. "We run," he shouted. They sprinted through the trees, ducking, weaving. Bullets zipped past. Somewhere behind them, Jonah was returning fire, buying them seconds. Maybe less. Clara was fast, but not faster than trained killers. Still, they reached the clearing, a frozen river cutting through the woods. On the far bank, a black helicopter descended, its skids kicking up a storm of snow. Vic stood in the open door, waving frantically. "Move," he yelled. But then Marcus heard it. A snap, then a thud. Clara screamed and went down, her leg folding under her. "Sniper." Marcus dropped beside her. Blood poured through her jeans, bright against the snow. "I can't," she gasped, eyes wide with shock. He lifted her without thinking, fire tearing through his arms. She was light, but the snow was deep. The sniper fired again, closer. Marcus didn't stop. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward. 30 seconds, Vic yelled from the chopper. Behind them, the men were getting closer. The masked one raised his rifle. Then, crack, his head snapped back. He fell. Jonah stepped from the trees, rifle smoking, eyes burning. "Go," he shouted. Marcus stumbled onto the chopper, Clara in his arms. Vic slammed the side door as Jonah dove in behind them. The helicopter lifted. Bullets slammed against the metal, but they were rising up, away from the blood and snow, into the dark sky. Clara lay on the floor, gasping. Her hands pressed her leg. Jonah tore open the first aid kit. Marcus knelt beside her. "Stay with me," he whispered. Her eyes fluttered. I didn't mean for you to get pulled in. You should have thought of that before you bugged my office." She tried to smile. Failed. Marcus looked at Jonah. "How bad is it?" "Through and through. Femoral arteries intact. She's lucky. But we've got minutes, maybe less, to get her proper help." The pilot shouted over the headset. "We're heading to a private facility, clean, off-grid. 20 minutes. Marcus sat back, heart racing. He looked down at Clara. "You're going to tell me everything. No more half-truths. No more secrets." She nodded faintly, eyes brimming with pain. "I will." Then she lost consciousness. The chopper sped through the night. But Marcus didn't realize yet. While one thread had been left bleeding in the snow, another was already waiting for them at the so-called safe facility. Because Clara wasn't the only one with a tracker. And someone else, someone in Marcus's own circle, had been feeding intel to the enemy from the beginning. They had escaped one trap, only to fly straight into another. The helicopter sliced through the night sky like a silent blade, its rotors chopping the cold air over the Adirondack Mountains. Marcus sat hunched beside Clara's unconscious form, her head resting against his leg, her leg wrapped tightly with a pressure bandage. Blood still soaked through the cloth, dark and spreading. Jonah had done everything he could. Now it was up to the facility. The pilot's voice crackled through the headset. "ETA, 7 minutes." Marcus looked up at Jonah, who was sitting across from him, holding the medical kit like it was a weapon. Vic stood near the side door, rifle slung across his chest, constantly scanning the dark landscape through the chopper's window. "No tail," Vic muttered, "but they'll try again. You realize that, right?" Marcus nodded. "She's not done," he said, voice low. "Not even close." Jonah leaned forward. "And neither are they. Whoever sent those men into the woods, they weren't freelancers. That was coordinated. They moved like a kill unit. And you saw how the lead guy talked to Clara," Marcus added. "He knew her. She wasn't just an asset to them." Vic grunted. "She was trained. Or raised," Marcus said. The word hung in the air. They all knew what that could mean. Born into it. Indoctrinated. Not a hired gun, a loyalist. "Facilities prepped," the pilot said. "They've cleared the west hangar for intake. Clean team on standby." The chopper banked left, and through the glass Marcus saw it. A wide, snow-covered structure tucked into the mountain like it had grown there. No signs, no fences, just one red light above a narrow landing strip. The roof opened slowly like jaws, revealing a private underground bay, secure, sterile, and silent. Marcus had built it 5 years ago with his most trusted engineers. Only 4 people knew about it. 3 of them were in this helicopter. The 4th was his fiancée, Clara. The helicopter descended smoothly into the bay. As soon as the skids touched down, white-coated medics rushed forward, wheeling a gurney. Jonah and Vic helped lift Clara onto it. She stirred once, murmured something in a language Marcus didn't recognize, then went limp again. They wheeled her into the medical wing, through a long hallway beneath steel-reinforced ceilings. Marcus followed, but as he stepped through the 3rd door, Jonah gently stopped him. "Let them do their job. She's stable for now. You need rest." "I'm not sleeping." "I didn't say sleep," Jonas said. "I said rest. Your head's got to stay clear, because I don't think she's the only one who lied to you." Marcus stared at him. "What are you saying?" Jonah's eyes were grim. "I mean, someone on the inside fed your office camera's data to Berlin. That feed was rerouted twice." "The first reroute?" "It came from a server located inside your company's own internal network." Marcus's heart stopped. "You sure?" "Triple-checked. Someone close to you rerouted the data feed before it was bounced overseas. It was cloaked inside a dummy financial report. I traced the metadata to a clearance tag." "Whose tag?" Jonah pulled out a tablet and handed it to Marcus. Marcus looked, and the blood drained from his face. Gabriel, his CFO, his childhood best friend, the man who'd been by his side through every rise and fall. Godfather to his niece, a brother in everything but name. "Gabriel," Marcus whispered. Jonah nodded. "I couldn't believe it either." Marcus staggered backward. "That's not possible. There must be a mistake." Vic stepped forward. There's no mistake. We've known for a while there was a leak. We just didn't know who. Not until now. But why? Marcus asked. What would he gain? Money, Vic said. Or leverage. Or maybe something else. Someone like him. Trusted, invisible. He's exactly who an enemy would want close to you. Marcus clenched his fists. If Gabriel betrayed me, he said slowly, then Clara was only half the setup. She was just the bait. Jonah finished. Gabriel? He's the blade. In a locked observation room, Clara stirred. The dim light buzzed overhead. She blinked, then winced. Her thigh throbbed with a dull, electric pain. She reached down and found fresh bandages, clean sheets, a medical for her arm. The walls were white. The air smelled like alcohol and steel. A camera blinked in the corner. She looked up at it. I know you're watching, she said softly. Behind a glass, Marcus did not respond. But he was there. Jonah stood beside him, silent. On the screen, Clara exhaled. I told you I didn't want to do it this way, she continued. But it's too late now, isn't it? She closed her eyes. They'll come for me, and they'll kill anyone standing between us. Then she opened her eyes and looked straight into the camera. And you, Marcus, they want you most of all. Later that night, Marcus sat alone in the strategy room, surrounded by digital maps, feeds, data points. He had men trying to locate Gabriel, who'd apparently gone off-grid 2 hours earlier, canceling a scheduled board meeting with a text. Family emergency. The phone he used to send the message pinged a signal on the outskirts of Manhattan. Then it went dark. Jonah walked in, holding a file. We found something else. He tossed it onto the table. Marcus opened it. Inside were photos. Gabriel and Clara. Together. 6 months before Marcus had met her. Drinking wine in a bar in Prague. Laughing. Holding hands. Marcus stared at the images. His voice cracked. They planned it from the start. Jonah nodded. All of it. She was part of Gabriel's plan to get close to you. Win your trust. Spy from the inside. But I don't think she ever planned on falling for you. Marcus didn't say anything. He stood quietly, then walked back toward Clara's room. She was awake again, propped up in bed, pale but alert. He didn't wait. He opened the door and walked in. Clara looked up. Marcus! He tossed a file onto the bed. She looked at it, then slowly closed it. I'm sorry. Not enough. No, she said. It's not. He stepped closer. You lied to me. You watched me. You made me love you. I didn't make you do anything, she said. You did that all on your own. His jaw clenched. And Gabriel? She swallowed. I didn't know at first. Not the full plan. I was told to get close. And then he told me who you were. What you had. And what he wanted. What does he want, Clara? She hesitated. Then, everything. Marcus stared at her. Then I'm going to take everything back. He turned to go. But before he reached the door, Clara said, You don't understand. It's not just Gabriel. It's bigger. Much bigger. Marcus froze. She continued. You remember the Wexler Group? That company you bought and dismantled last year. He nodded. They were a shell, she said, for something else. A ghost organization. Call them the Paling. Gabriel didn't just sell your data. He gave them a key to your encrypted archives. Blueprints. Patents. Military-grade AI. Marcus turned slowly. They want to use it. Clara nodded. To start a war. Marcus's heart dropped. Where? Clara looked at him, eyes shining with fear now. Everywhere. And just as she said it, the facility's alarms screamed to life. Red lights blared. Jonah's voice roared through the speaker system. We've been breached. Repeat, internal breach. Marcus grabbed Clara. Can you walk? She winced. I'll crawl if I have to. He pulled her from the bed. Outside, the hallway went dark. Then the gunfire started, and a voice crackled over the intercom. A voice Marcus knew all too well. Hello, Marcus. Gabriel. I told you I'd always be watching. Red lights strobed through the corridor, painting everything in a flashing, bloody haze. Alarms shrieked from the ceiling. Somewhere below them, the gunfire had turned into a full-blown firefight. Shouts. Screams. The sharp crack of suppressed rifles echoed off the reinforced walls. Marcus pressed Clara against the side of the corridor, shielding her body with his. His pulse pounded in his ears. Tell me how he got in, Marcus whispered. Clara, panting through the pain in her leg. winced, and looked up at the red-lit ceiling. The fail-safe. There's always a back door in every system. Gabriel probably installed it himself when this place was being built. Marcus cursed under his breath. He had trusted Gabriel with the blueprints, the schematics, the security infrastructure. Gabriel had designed most of it. His signature was in every firewall. He hadn't just opened the door. He'd built the door. Jonah's voice came through Marcus's earpiece, ragged with urgency. 3 men in the north corridor breached the secondary blast gate. We've lost comms with the garage team. Vic's tried to reroute surveillance, but we're blind in most sectors. You need to get a safe room one. Now. Marcus turned to Clara. Can you move? She gritted her teeth. Yes. He looped her arm over his shoulder and lifted. She screamed softly but forced herself upright. Together, they began hobbling down the corridor. Above them, Gabriel's voice crackled again through the facility's speakers, as casual and clear as a man reading the evening news. Such a beautiful place you built, Marcus. I really did my best on the design. Didn't think I'd get to storm it myself one day. Marcus's jaw tightened. You want the reaction? Don't give it to him. They passed 2 bodies, facility guards, both shot cleanly in the head. Clara turned away. Marcus stared, rage bubbling under the surface. This was no robbery, no scare tactic. This was a purge. They turned a corner just as a security door began to close. Marcus shoved Clara through first and Dove after her. The heavy steel slammed shut behind them, cutting off the echo of approaching footsteps. They were now in Section Delta, an older part of the facility, once used for storing confidential backups. Dust lay thick in the corners. The lights flickered. Marcus knew the way. He had personally selected the location of Safe Room 1, buried 3 stories underground, accessible only through a biometric scanner and a 5-digit rotating code known only to 3 people. Jonah, Gabriel, and himself. And now Gabriel had overridden it. They made it to the elevator shaft. The power was dead. Marcus kicked open the maintenance hatch and stared down the ladder inside. It was a 30-foot drop. He turned to Clara. Can you climb? Clara's voice was flat. Not unless I grow a second leg in the next 2 minutes. Without a word, Marcus slid off his jacket, tied it around her body like a harness, and locked the sleeves across his chest. Hold on, he said, and don't look down. She clung to him. He began climbing down, each rung icy with sweat and fear. Gabriel's voice returned, sweeter now, sinister. Do you remember the first time we talked about legacy, Marcus? You said legacy wasn't about power. It was about impact. You were wrong. Legacy is power. And now, yours belongs to me. When they reached the bottom of the shaft, Marcus kicked open the maintenance panel and dragged Clara out into a narrow passageway lined with old servers. They were close now. Just beyond the server room was the safe room, a vault reinforced with carbon steel and a manual bolt system. If they could reach it, they'd have a temporary shield. Jonah's voice burst through the comms again. Marcus, Gabriel just rerouted the fire suppression system. He's going to burn you out of there. You've got 3 minutes tops. I'm almost to the safe room. He's bringing in a team of 6. Full tactical gear. I don't know how, but they got our floor schematics. And what? They're not here for Clara anymore. They're here for you. Marcus froze. What? He doesn't want you dead yet. He wants you alive. I think he's planning to extract you. Clara looked at Marcus, stunned. Why? She whispered. And then it hit him. He remembered something from years ago. A prototype. A secure biometric vault. Not for money. Not even for data, but for intellectual property. A concept he'd buried in a remote server. Accessible only through his living biosignature. Retinal scan, heartbeat, and an encrypted phrase only he knew. Gabriel couldn't steal it. He could only inherit it. And Marcus was the key. He looked at Clara. He needed me to unlock something. Something I built a long time ago. Clara frowned. What? Marcus's voice was cold. The Wexler vault. They reached the safe room. Marcus activated the manual crank and shoved open the door. Inside was a dark, narrow chamber with 3 walls of steel and a biometric scanner. He placed his thumb on the reader. The room hummed. Blue lights blinked to life. Clara sank to the floor, exhausted, legs shaking. Help will come. Marcus said. We just need time. Outside, the corridor shuddered with the thump of heavy boots. Muffled shouts. Then, boom, a blast rocked the door. Dust rained from the ceiling. Another blast. Clara flinched. Jonah's voice cracked in again. They're breaching. Marcus, we've got less than a minute. I'm coming to you. No, Marcus said. Stay with the intel. Get out if we don't make it. A third explosion. The door bent inward. Marcus drew the sidearm from his hip and checked the clip. One full magazine. Clara picked up a small shock baton from the corner of the room, holding it with shaking fingers. Marcus, she whispered, if we die, we won't. She looked at him. Why do you still trust me? He didn't answer. Outside, boots stopped just beyond the safe room. Then a voice. Familiar. Too familiar. Gabriel. I prefer not to damage the merchandise. Marcus, he called. Step out. Let's talk like old friends. Marcus aimed at the door. I'm not in the mood for nostalgia. Gabriel laughed. Then let's talk about the Wexler vault. You know I know. You've known for a while. You just didn't want to admit I got there first. I designed it to burn before it ever reached your hands. Marcus snapped. Oh, but you didn't, old friend, Gabriel said. Because it can't burn unless you light the match. And I don't need you dead. I just need you to say one little phrase. What phrase? Marcus called. Gabriel's voice dipped into something darker. The one you whispered to your mother's grave before you launched Delaney Tech. The one I heard, even when you thought you were alone. Marcus's blood ran cold. Gabriel had been there. All these years. Behind the camera. Always watching. The final blast ripped the door off its hinges. And Gabriel stepped inside, flanked by men in black body armor. Gun raised. Smiling. I told you I'd always be watching, he said. Marcus raised his weapon and pulled the trigger. Boom. The screen went black. Smoke filled the safe room like a sudden storm. The explosion from Marcus's gun echoed against the steel walls, followed instantly by the crack of return fire. Sparks flew as bullets tore into the reinforced panels. Marcus dropped to a crouch, shielding Clara with his body as they scrambled for cover behind the emergency console. She screamed, half from pain, half from fury, as bullets slammed into the console's edge inches from her shoulder. Gabriel's voice was eerily calm, muffled through the smoke. You always were dramatic, Marcus. More gunfire. Marcus fired again, his shots precise, controlled. One of Gabriel's men dropped, a neat hole in his chest. Another moved forward, sweeping low with a ballistic shield. Clara, stay down. Marcus shouted. She didn't listen. Instead, she jabbed the shock baton between the legs of the man with the shield. The scream that followed was high and ugly. He crumpled instantly. Marcus finished him with a shot to the helmet. Gabriel ducked behind a steel pillar, firing blind. We could have done this so differently, he shouted over the noise. Do you even understand what you're protecting? I know what I'm stopping, Marcus shouted back. You're not stopping anything. Gabriel yelled. You're just delaying the inevitable. The vault, your little masterpiece, is already exposed. We just need the phrase. You give me that and this ends. Marcus crouched lower, hands shaking. The phrase. He remembered that day so clearly. His mother's grave, rain falling like ash, whispering to the stone, believing no one was around. Build for the broken, not the billionaires. It wasn't just a mantra. It was the access phrase. And now Gabriel knew. He's bluffing, Marcus told himself. He has to be. If he had full access, he wouldn't be here. Then the fire suppression system kicked in, filling the room with a high-pitched hiss. Cold, inert gas burst from ceiling vents. The room fogged over in seconds, reducing visibility to just a few feet. Gabriel cursed. Clara grabbed Marcus's hand. They'll try to extract you now, she whispered. This gas, it's cover for a stun grenade. Where's Jonah? Marcus asked through clenched teeth. She hesitated, gone silent. They've cut communications. Before Marcus could respond, a metallic clink rolled across the floor near them. Clara's eyes went wide. Grenade. Marcus grabbed her and rolled. Boom. The flashbang exploded in a deafening burst of white and heat. Marcus's vision went white, then black, then white again. His ears rang so violently he thought they were bleeding. When his sight returned, 3 of Gabriel's men were inside the safe room. Gabriel himself stood in the smoke, watching, calm, detached. Clara was groaning beside Marcus, barely conscious. Gabriel stepped forward, gun aimed at Marcus's face. "I should thank you," he said. "You've done half the work already. The final access protocol is linked to your biometric sync. All I need now," he leaned closer, eyes narrowing, "is your voice." Marcus's mind spun. He needed time. Anything. "I never understood why you did it," Marcus rasped, stalling. Gabriel tilted his head. "Did what?" "Turned on me. Sold me out. Sold us out." Gabriel gave a long sigh. "I got tired of being the man behind the curtain. I built everything with you, and I got scraps. Your name on the towers, your face on the magazines. But I did the numbers. I handled the systems. I saw the truth. Power doesn't belong to the people who dream. It belongs to the ones who control the dream." He knelt beside Marcus. "I'm done controlling from shadows. I want the spotlight. And you think killing me gets you that?" "No," Gabriel said with a small smile. "Owning you does." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a sleek, black device, a biometric sequencer with Marcus's Delaney Tech logo etched into the side. It had been taken from the facility vault. Marcus stared at it. Gabriel pressed a button. The screen lit up. A prompt appeared. "Please speak access phrase." He held the device up to Marcus's mouth. "Say it." Marcus didn't move. Gabriel's finger twitched. "You say it now, or she dies first," he whispered, nodding toward Clara. Marcus looked down. Clara's eyes were open, just barely. Her lips moved silently. He leaned closer. She whispered by time, and in that moment, Marcus understood. The gas, the flashbang, the timing. Jonah wasn't silent. He was jamming signals. Marcus opened his mouth and said, "Bill for the broken." Gabriel leaned forward eagerly. Marcus's next word was barely a whisper. "But burn it for the snakes." Gabriel frowned. "What?" Click. A hidden panel beneath the floor of the safe room slid open, triggered by Marcus's voice. Inside, a dead man's switch. Marcus grabbed it. Gabriel's eyes went wide. "No." Marcus pressed the switch. Boom. A secondary explosion tore through the east wing of the facility. Not enough to collapse it, but enough to trigger full lockdown protocol. Steel blast doors slammed shut in every hallway. Jonah's voice crackled through a hidden comm Marcus had stashed in his boot. "Got your signal. We're cutting power to the north wing and flushing ventilation with gas. Hold tight. We're coming in." Gabriel screamed in rage and raised his pistol, but Clara was faster. With her last ounce of strength, she lunged at Gabriel and drove a shard of metal from the broken console into his thigh. He howled, dropping his gun. Marcus tackled him. They crashed to the floor, fists flying. Years of friendship and betrayal burst in every punch. Blood flew. Marcus landed at the blow square on Gabriel's temple. But Gabriel countered, smashing Marcus's face into the floor. "You were never better than me," he roared. "I didn't have to be," Marcus gasped. "I was honest." He twisted, grabbed Gabriel's pistol, and shoved the barrel against his ribs. "Don't," Gabriel whispered. "Then call them off." "Too late." "Call them off." Gabriel stared up at him and smiled. "No." Bang. Gabriel went limp. Jonah burst into the room seconds later, Vic close behind. "Clear," Jonah shouted. "Target down." Marcus dropped the gun. Vic knelt to check Clara's pulse. "She's alive," he confirmed. "Barely, but she's going to need blood. Fast." Jonah helped Marcus up. "You all right?" Marcus wiped blood from his mouth, eyes dazed. Not even close. Sirens continued to howl. Backup teams arrived minutes later, sweeping the rest of the facility. Gabriel's men were either dead or fleeing into the wilderness. Data servers were secured. The Wexler vault remained locked. Only Marcus could open it. But for now, he wouldn't. Hours passed. Medical helicopters came. Clara was flown to a military hospital under a false name. Marcus watched her go, sitting alone on the snowy landing pad. Jonah sat beside him, holding a thick file. "Operation Paling is bigger than we thought," Jonas said. Gabriel was one head of the snake. There are others. Coordinated cells, government liaisons, intelligence leaks. And a vault? It's the map. Marcus didn't speak. Jonah looked at him. You gonna open it? Marcus shook his head. Not yet. Why? He looked up at the morning sky. Because once I do, there's no going back. Jonah was quiet for a moment, then asked, and Clara? Marcus stared at the rising sun. I don't know yet, because somewhere deep down, even after everything, he still didn't know if she'd save his life or set the whole thing up. But the war wasn't over. It was just beginning. 2 weeks later, the world was quieter, but only on the surface. News of the Orion Tower cyber breach made headlines, but Marcus Delaney was never mentioned. Officials blamed a foreign-sourced malware incident targeting financial infrastructure. Public panic was minimal. No deaths reported. No names named. But in the shadows, alliances were shifting. Banks quietly froze shell accounts tied to offshore servers. A handful of corporate board members resigned with no explanation. One disappeared entirely. And in a high-security medical facility tucked in the Austrian Alps, Clara Marin opened her eyes. The first face she saw was Jonas. You're lucky, he said softly. Marcus pulled you out with less than a minute to spare. Clara didn't speak. She turned her head and stared out the frosted window, where snowflakes fell in lazy spirals. Then where is he? Jonah hesitated. Gone. Off-grid. Running. No, Jonas said. Hunting. 3,000 miles away. A private jet touched down on a small airstrip in Chile. Marcus stepped out, his coat whipping in the wind, a small duffel slung over his shoulder. He looked leaner, harder. Every trace of the polished billionaire was gone. In his place, a man with unfinished business. A local guide waited with a jeep. You're here for the vault? Marcus nodded once. They drove for 4 hours into the mountains. When they reached the ridge, Marcus climbed out and walked the final distance alone, his boots crunching on dry stone. There, buried in the earth, was the final failsafe of the Wexler vault. A seismic-triggered security node connected to every critical system he'd ever built. What he told Jonah was true. Once activated, there was no going back. He knelt, pulled out a black case. Inside, the biometric device Gabriel had tried to use. It still worked, still waiting for one phrase. He took a deep breath. Then he spoke. Bill for the broken, not the billionaires. The device scanned his voice, his retina, his heartbeat. Accepted. A low hum filled the air. Beneath his feet, the ground rumbled. Across the globe, encrypted packets began to unlock. Files that exposed secret offshore accounts linked to powerful corporations. Covert operations funded through tech subsidiaries. Whistleblower testimonies buried under sealed court orders. All of it, everything, Marcus had been forced to hide for years. Because now, he was no longer protecting himself. He was revealing everyone else. In Vienna, Clara sat up in bed. Her phone buzzed. A burner device left on the nightstand. She opened it. A secure message blinked. It's done. The first wave is live. She exhaled. She typed back. What now? A pause. Then, now we see who survives. A week later, the world shifted. A U.S. senator resigned after leaked documents revealed he'd funneled campaign money into an illegal defense startup. A major European banking firm collapsed overnight. Whistleblower documents hit dark web forums across 8 countries, signed only with the same 2 words. For the broken. And in a quiet coastal village in Portugal, Marcus Delaney stood at the edge of a cliff, watching the waves crash below. He had no company, no security, just silence. He didn't know who would come for him first, but he was ready. Footsteps crunched behind him. He turned slowly. Clara stood there. Her coat was zipped high against the wind. Her limp was slight, almost gone. They looked at each other for a long time. You're supposed to be in hiding, he said. So are you, she replied. Silence again. Then she stepped closer. I wasn't faking all of it, she said. I know, Marcus said. You believe me? No, but I don't believe myself anymore either. They stood on the edge of the world. Then Clara said, there's still more. Gabriel wasn't the top. I know, Marcus replied. The paling is still alive. She nodded. And they're coming. Marcus turned back to the ocean. Then let them come. And beside him, Clara stood. Not as his fiancée, not as his enemy, but as his only ally in a world burning from the inside out. Because the war hadn't ended, it had only just begun.